Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on Sri FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the world at SriNews.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Supreme Court unanimously dismisses a consolidated suit challenging the legality of the removal process of former Chief Justice Gertrude Isaba Tokonu. Also on the program this afternoon, government releases 350 million Ghana cedis to the National Disaster Management Organization to fund emergency flood relief and mitigation efforts following Monday's devastating flood. And much later on the program, Accra's transport system comes under pressure as flood-damaged commercial vehicles remain off the roads, triggering long queues at bus stops and leaving commuters stranded. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. The Supreme Court has unanimously dismissed the consolidated cases filed by Vincent Assefa Atachia and former Chief Justice Gertrude Isaba Tokonu, together with the Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral Systems Census, challenging the legality of the process leading to the removal of the former Chief Justice. The suit questioned the constitutionality of the President's decision to proceed with the removal process and Article 146 of the Constitution, arguing that the procedure adopted was unlawful. However, the Supreme Court has now ruled against all the applicants, clearing the way for the process to stand. And Lord Edwasare is our court affairs correspondent. He'll be joining us shortly. Ahead of that, the Ministry of Finance has released 350 million Ghana cedis from the contingency fund to support emergency flood relief and mitigation efforts following the recent devastating floods across parts of the country. The release follows a directive from President John Mahama, who instructed the Finance Minister, Dr. Kasia Lato-Forson, to mobilize resources for an immediate government response. In accordance with Article 177 of the 1992 Constitution, Parliament Finance Committee approved the withdrawal before the funds were released. The Controller and Accountant General subsequently opened a dedicated National Disaster Management Committee account at the Bank of Ghana and transferred the full 350 million cedis. Of the total amount, 200 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for emergency relief to flood victims and affected communities, while 150 million Ghana cedis will fund flood mitigation project aimed at reducing the impact of future flooding. The government says the funding is intended to provide immediate assistance to affected communities while strengthening measures to improve the country's resilience against future flood disasters. Meanwhile, former Minister for Works and Housing Francis Asenso-Boakye has described the government allocation of 350 million Ghana cedis for flood relief and mitigation as an afterthought, accusing it of failing to act proactively. The Bantama MP argues that the scale and impact of the recent flooding could have been reduced if the current administration had continued key flood control projects initiated under the Akufo-Addo government, including the National Flood Control Program. He said the program, launched in 2018 to improve drainage infrastructure and reduce flooding in vulnerable communities, should have been sustained to build the gains already made. He spoke earlier with me on TV3's New Day.
The National Flood Control Program is to help, first of all, to build new drains, to rehabilitate new damaged ones or weak ones, and also to embark on the sorting exercise, especially ahead of the rainy season. It started in 2018, and in 2018, government committed 200 million Ghana cedis. It continued, and in 2020, the government committed 250 billion Ghana cedis. And in 2024, the government committed 90 million. There are a lot of places in Accra and Kumasi that were flooding years back. And as a result of these interventions under the National Flood Control Program, all these areas are not don't flood anymore. The program requires continuous action and investment.
He also rejected claims that the program had been ineffective, insisting that the recent floods do not diminish the impact of the interventions undertaken during his tenure.
Drainage construction or drain construction says that when you build it to a point and you leave it, when there's water, especially heavy water, it will continue to flood. But if, for instance, this government had continued the program and continued to build from where we left off, it will have reduced significantly.
So you admit that if indeed we need to continue and we've already spent 450 million Ghana cedis, we wasted that money. It is supposed
that we have not spent. We said commitment, what government voted for. Some of the works, for instance, in 2024 are still ongoing. This happened when I actually left office in 2024, but works are still ongoing. And that's why I said commitment. It's not everything that has been spent.
Yes.
Government has spent this amount.
Admitting that not everything was spent, the one that was spent, that we didn't see results, it means that that money was wasted because we didn't see results in these areas you mentioned.
No. For all these years that we didn't experience this flood. And I'm saying that it requires continuous investment. When you build it at a point, for instance, when the total stretch of the drain is, say, 40 kilometers, and you do up to, say, 20 kilometers or 18 kilometers, and the rest is not done, it's not completed, certainly it won't be robust enough to withstand heavy rains. So that's the situation. It doesn't mean it has been wasted. It means that we have to continue and complete it. And since this government came, they have not invested anything to complete it. And it is just an afterthought that yesterday.
And he had Francis Asenso-Boakye, his former Works and Housing Minister, speaking earlier today on TV3 New Day. Now, Ghana's public transport system is under pressure after Monday's flood left several commercial vehicles damaged and off the road. The reduced number of vehicles is causing long queues at major bus stops across Accra, leaving many commuters stranded. The GPRTU is appealing to the government for support to help affected victims repair their vehicles and restore services. George Quayling is my colleague. He's visited some of the affected transport terminals. He joins us live on the phone. George, if you can first tell us which transport terminals you've visited so far and the situation you found. We lost George Quayling on the line. We'll try and get back to him to bring you the latest on the situation. We stay on flood-related issues, and the onset of the rains and floods leave behind stagnant water bodies which become a breeding ground for mosquitoes. In a bid to prevent malaria infections during this season, thousands of children under 5 years across northern Ghana are receiving seasonal life-saving malaria medication alongside the distribution of insecticide-treated nets in schools from today, the 2nd of July, to Sunday, the 5th. There's more in the following report.
The Ghana Health Service reports that malaria prevalence has fallen from 27.5% in 2011 to 8.6% in 2022. Malaria deaths have dropped by more than 98% from over 3,200 in 2011 to just 52 recorded last year. The seasonal malaria chemo prevention campaign is reported to be playing a significant role as it progresses steadily, with the first phase already completed in the Upper East, Upper West, Northeast, and Oti regions. The intervention targets children in the Savannah, Northern and Bono East regions who are aged 3 to 59 months and belongs to the group most vulnerable to severe malaria. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Samuel Kaba Akorier, says the campaign has been strengthened this year through digital registration and enhanced safety monitoring.
We now look forward to start the Cycle 1 in the northern Savannah and Bono East regions from 2nd to 5th July 2026. We encourage all partners and caregivers of children aged 3 to 59 months to welcome our trained community health work volunteers into their homes and ensure that every eligible child receives the full course of treatment.
Dr. Samuel Kaba Akoria also highlighted the ongoing school-based distribution of insecticide-treated nets to pupils in classes 2 and 6, describing the program as a reliable way of extending protection to entire households.
In partnership with the Ghana Education Service, it ensures that every child, regardless of where they live, has the opportunity to sleep protected from malaria every single night. This approach increases ITN ownership in households, extending protection to the whole family under the roof.
Some 1.5 million children are targeted for the next phase of the campaign.
And that was a news desk report. Let's go to our earlier story about passengers being stranded because commercial vehicles were damaged in the floodwaters. George Koinin has visited some bus terminals. He is on the phone with us now. George, tell us which areas you've been to, what the situation is like.
Richard, thanks so much. Good afternoon. Thanks for your time. So I'm currently reporting from Accra Mall. So we went to Jolu this morning. We went to La Paz, Cycle, and some adjoining areas. Clearly, it's already an issue. We have this transportation crisis already, but the latest report is the fact that Monday's torrential rainfall actually broke down some vehicles. It broke down some vehicles. And so I would say there are limited commercial vehicles in the system. And so as we worsen the transportation crisis, I spoke to some people who actually were in the queue for more than 3 hours. And there's one particular route, there's one bus stop that usually goes to Accra, but all the people that queued in that very bus stop, all the cars were going to Cycle. So they had to stay for more than 4 hours. And so if these cars that are broken down are not repaired, are not fixed, to return back to the road, then obviously we'll still be staring at this crisis, but over Western. And most of the drivers and passengers that I spoke to, what they want is government should actually improve their bus rapid system. The trains, it will take a long time. Yes, some also talked about making sure our train system works, but that is a long-term measure. But with the immediate measure, they want the roads to be fixed because most of their cars also break down because of the bad roads. So let's fix the roads and make sure that our rapid bus system works effectively. So these are some of the measures they actually forfeit. Beaches.
Indeed, I can imagine that the passengers are already frustrated, but tell us what they are telling you.
One for you. Let's speak to one for you. She actually stays at Princess, and this morning she's actually used 3 hours. She's staying in the queue for 3 hours, and so I just want her to just explain her ordeal to you personally, madam. So she's live with me. She's live with me right now, and then she was in the queue for 3 hours. Okay.
I want to explain that.
Okay. You can say how long now to work queue?
Oh, no, then she said I'm by minute queue.
It's like 3 hours. And I'm already man. They work queue. How long do you stay?
1 hour, 2 hours.
That means the issue is a bad one. Bad issue is bad.
I was Princess.
So she actually stays at Princess, and so she actually uses 3 or 2 hours to stay in the queue to maybe go to areas like La Paz or Malam. So it's a dire situation. So clearly, if these cars that broke down during Monday's flight are not fixed, or worse in the situation.
All right, George Koining, my colleague, monitoring the situation at bus terminals for us. And let's speak to Samuel Amwa. He's Deputy Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, of course, the body representing these commercial drivers. He joins us live on the phone as well. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me.
How badly has the flooding affected commercial transport operations, and really what proportion of your vehicles remain off the road as at now?
All right. Okay. So Monday, what happened on last Monday was something that affected most of our drivers, and as I'm speaking to you, most of the vehicles are now being sent to the workshops. Some was affected, in a way that has to go for a body work. At Circle of Donna, 3 of our vehicles, the Sprinter vehicles, were, taken to the main gutter. And apart from the damage of the engine, it has to be taken to body works. And same applies to most of the stations. So as I'm speaking to you, already we're having some shortage of vehicles, prior to, the bad roads that leads to, most of our vehicles being sent to shop. Some of them, they are some ball joints, some shock absorbers, some springs and all that. And this rain too has also brought another one. So as I'm speaking to you, this morning, the leadership, sent a delegation to go around, most of the stations. And what we experienced was that most of the vehicles, as I'm speaking to you, are being parked at the workshops. But they are trying to, work on it to make sure that to be back on road. And you see, those vehicles, it's individuals that, has bought their vehicles and has registered with the unions. And so therefore, they need some assistance, to be able to fix those vehicles back. So we are doing our best to make sure that those vehicles will come back on roads. Today, I visited a certain station myself, and I find out that some vehicles has already been repaired. Some to take about a week or plus before it will come back on road. So we are trying our best to make sure that we continue serving the public.
So you say that they need assistance. What is the biggest challenge, really, that they need assistance on in terms of getting the cars back on the road?
Yeah, I'm talking about financial assistance. You see, normally, I remember some time ago we had a meeting with a transport minister together with the vice president. We made them understood that this is our business. Some of our car owners do go in for bank loans to purchase the vehicles, and because of high cost of spare parts, sometimes when the vehicle got damaged, it's difficult to repair them back. So this thing that has happened, most of them even don't have money to purchase engine or repair those vehicles back. That is why we were saying that some of them need financial assistance before they can be able to fix their vehicles to come back on road.
All right, we'll have to end it here. Thank you very much. And that was Samuel Amoa. He's the Deputy Public Relations Officer for the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, the GPRTU. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Fresh details emerging surrounding the killing of 40-year-old Ghanaian Mr. Bashiru Isaac suggest that the incident did not happen during a March 30 protest and was shot in a different area as widely reported. So that must be the 30th of June. Now, some Ghanaians say that living in South Africa, I beg your pardon. Now, some Ghanaians living in South Africa say the victim, a tailor living in a nearby suburb, may have been caught up in a system where some foreigners pay local groups protection fees for safety. Let's listen to Stephen Konedu, who is a Ghanaian living in South Africa.
The incident actually didn't happen, according to my source. It didn't happen during the march on the 30th. It happened a day before. And when we talk about killings in that area, it was reported that it happened in Kailicha. And the incident actually, again, according to my source, didn't happen in Kailicha. This man in question is a tailor. And there in Cape Town, where these locals, or let me put it that way, where these foreigners reside, you have to pay protection fee for you to be protected in that area. So this thing that happened leading to the shot of this Ghanaian man had to do with protection fee. It had nothing to do with the march, the protest that happened on the 30th. Kailicha is a place where the foreigners live and also most of the locals, and the crime rate there is extremely high. So let me limit it to my people, my Ghanaians there. You have to pay protection. They have groups of people who have hired themselves to protect people. So there are groups of people. So if you belong to this group, or if you pay protection fee to this group of people, they'll be protecting you from time to time from other groups who will be coming to attack you. So once you pay your protection fee to these people, when others are coming to attack you, they will come to your aid. They will protect you. At the beginning of every month, you need to pay protection fee. Every Ghanaian here is ready to leave. But the question is, where do we start from? Some of us have established here. People have left. When they got home, they received an amount of 5,000 Ghana cedis, 5 kgs of rice, oil, and then some transport money. Is it enough? It's better than nothing. If these two governments can put their heads together, at least give Ghanaians here documentation. Document all Ghanaians here. All Ghanaians here are calling on the government. If exemption permits, I know it's still on the table. His Excellency Benjamin Kofi Kwashi has been in talks with the government, hoping that Ghanaians living here will receive this exemption permit that will permit them to work peacefully. Trust me, even if they are collecting money, if you need to pay money for work permit, Ghanaians are willing to pay. To stay and work, you need to have proper documentation. And we are all calling on the government intervention to please, the way they are handling issues, it shouldn't be on social media banter. These two governments must put their heads together.
And you heard that Stephen Konedu. He's a Ghanaian living in South Africa. The government of Ghana, in a statement, has already condemned it, describing it as a senseless act of violence and the rising tide of xenophobia targeting African nationals, including Ghanaians in South Africa. Foreign Affairs correspondent Martin Esiedudate joins us live on the phone now with some more. Martin, what more do we know about this attack?
Well, Beatrice, as it stands, the government of Ghana has officially written through the Ghanaian High Commissioner in Pretoria to the government of South Africa. And like you indicated, they've signaled a strong condemnation of the killing of the Ghanaian. From the report you just played, it means that there are two sides to the story that led to the death of the Ghanaian in Pretoria. From the report you just played, it meant that it was not necessarily connected to the march in South Africa, but at least there is some relation there where, based on the statement that the government of Ghana released, they are saying that there certainly must be some connection, because the Ghanaian, we are told, has lived in South Africa for well over 20 years. He has 3 children, the eldest of them being 10 years old. Now that he's been shot and killed, what happens to his family? So the government of Ghana, through the statement, condemned the killing and are asking the South African government to undertake a dispassionate investigation to get to the bottom of what exactly happened. Again, they have written formally to the to the African Union Commission, asking the AU to step in to ensure that these reports of xenophobic attacks on Africans in South Africa or other African nationals in South Africa is dealt with at the very top. And there are already plans to repatriate the body of the 40-year-old Ghanaian, Bashiru Isaac, who we are told was shot, to Ghana. As to when exactly that would happen, we are unable to tell as of now.
Beyond the ministry issuing the statement to condemn this act of violence as it describes it, what other steps are being taken in the interest of Ghanaians there?
Yeah, so you know that in the very early moments that these reports started coming in, where the March demonstrators gave a June 30 deadline, the government of Ghana was quick to respond. They made aircrafts available and asked Ghanaians in South Africa to register. Those that want to voluntarily be repatriated to report at the High Commission so that the processing would be done. Out of that, almost 1,000 Ghanaians have been brought back home to Ghana. The statement further said that those who chose to still stay in South Africa are for Ghanaian citizens. So some phone numbers or contacts have been provided in case you are still in South Africa and you feel the pressures from the demonstration or the anti-immigrant demonstrations could get to you. Do not hesitate to contact the High Commission. In fact, there's a 24-hour contact open line that they can contact from any part of South Africa, and then the necessary consular assistance will be made available to them. But as it stands now, the total number of Ghanaians in South Africa are still probably over 10,000 in different parts of South Africa. We are unable to tell whether or not this march that led to the death of one person, Ghanaian, would continue. But we are picking signals that they say they know that because people think the one they did is the only one they will do, they might return. So the March on March people say they will continue with their protest until something concrete is done by the South African government.
Thank you very much, Martin Asiridate. He's my colleague on the Foreign Affairs Desk. Jacob Osei-Yeboah, who contested the 2012 and the 2016 general elections as an independent candidate, has revealed that Kennedy Ohene-Agyapong would lead the base movement as its political leader. He told journalists in Kumasi on Thursday. He also asserts that the political organization is the only legally recognized movement operating under the base name in Ghana.
We sat down with them, and that is why they withdrew from the court. But as all of us know, we know that these political parties will always send no's among such movements such as ours.
That's right.
And so definitely, we anticipated some of these things. And that is why we have actually dissolved all positions within the base movement. And just judge for yourself. If I, Jacob Osei-Yeboah, and Dr. Oti Bonsu is leading the base movement, judge for yourself. Others, look at the national executives behind us. Some are former commissioners within our security forces. We have great colonels within us. Can it be compared with others?
Lecturers as well.
We have lecturers. Tomorrow you see lecturers and professionals all participating in our work.
That's right.
And so definitely you could see that we are well structured and we know what we are doing. I say whether they like it or not, Kennedy Ohene-Agyapong is coming come 2029.
And you had Jacob Osei-Yeboah, the person who contested the 2012 and 2016 general elections, just saw here on the Midday News on Sri FM 92.7.
Freezer, get the abba. Adama for the abba. A freezer. Adamba.
A historic reunion unfolded at the Mensha Palace as the overlord of the Gonja Kingdom, Yagbonra Ni Kunuto Ajewu Swale I, paid a landmark visit to the Asante Kingdom. The visit highlighted centuries of friendship between two of Ghana's most influential traditional kingdoms and renewed calls for unity, peace, and national development. And we'll bring you more on that later. That's it for the Midday News here on Sri FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Log on to srinews.com for more news.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up this afternoon, Ghana Statistical Service urges households to lean on seasonal substitute and businesses to lock in long-term supply terms to navigate the rising inflation pressures.
For businesses, the focus should be on managing costs through planning rather than reacting to short-term price movements.
Also, management of the Tema Oil Refinery plans to expand its processing capacity to about 200,000 barrels of crude oil a day. And much later, government of Ghana returns to domestic money market to borrow 3.371 billion cedis under tender 2014. We have details of our headlines and other stories. Please stay with us. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I am Enyonam Haliga. We're going to a first story now where following the latest inflation data released by the Ghana Statistical Service, government statistician has outlined strategic action plan for key stakeholders to cushion the impact of rising consumer prices. With the annual inflation climbing sharply to 5.3% in June on the back of rising non-food costs and local commodities, Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu is advising households to immediately adjust their spending habits.
For households, the priority is careful planning and smart spending. Where possible, prioritize essential needs and plan weekly purchases around lower cost substitutes and seasonal foods whose prices are often more stable. For businesses, the focus should be on managing costs through planning rather than reacting to short-term price movements. So, where feasible, secure supplier agreements for key local inputs to reduce uncertainty and improve cost planning. For government, continue maintaining macroeconomic discipline. Stable fiscal and monetary policies remain very essential for sustaining the progress made in reducing inflation over the past 1 year. Addressing supply bottlenecks, particularly in food storage, irrigation, transportation, and market logistics are key. Since locally produced items accounted for 86.6% of headline inflation, improving domestic supply chains offers one of the greatest opportunities to reduce future inflationary pressures. Use regional inflation data to target interventions more effectively.
Moving on from that, the government of Ghana returned to the domestic money market on Thursday, July 2, 2026, with a target of raising 3.37 billion cedis through its weekly treasury bill issuance. Today's auction, designated as Tender 2014, will feature the standard short-term maturities, opening up bids for the 91-day, 182-day, and the 364-day instruments.
This borrowing target of 3.371 billion cedis comes off the back of a strong rebound in investor appetite during the previous week's auction. Data released by the Bank of Ghana revealed that during the prior week, total investor bids reached 7.37 billion cedis. Out of those tenders, the state accepted 6.01 billion cedis, exceeding its initial fundraising target by more than 1.4 billion cedis. Three business attributes this strong surge in primary debt demand to a steady upward correction in yields, which has continuously drawn institutional investors back to short-term government securities. In the last auction, interest rates climbed across the entire yield curve. The 91-day bill advanced to 5.73%, the 182-day rose to 7.69%, and the 364-day instrument experienced a major spike to clear at 12.82%. The Treasury is anticipating that the combination of attractive yields and highly liquid conditions within the local financial market will sustain the momentum of oversubscriptions heading into the July 2 sale.
That was a report on the government of Ghana returning to the domestic money markets to borrow some 3.37 billion cedis under tender 2014. Now to some other stories. Management of the Tema Oil Refinery says it plans to expand its processing capacity to about 200,000 barrels of crude oil a day, positioning the refinery as a strategic energy hub in the sub-region. The expansion is in line with President John Dramani Mahama's vision of achieving energy self-sufficiency and would significantly increase the refinery's current processing capacity of about 28,000 barrels per stream a day. Speaking to the media, the managing director of the Tema Oil Refinery, Edmund Kambat, says the expansion would enable Ghana to meet domestic fuel demand while supplying refined petroleum products to the neighboring countries.
The president has asked us to expand the refinery, and I think very soon it will be announced. The refinery is going to move, and we are targeting about 200,000 barrels per stream day. That is what the president has asked us to do. The details will be out very soon. The president has also asked us to make sure that we maintain this profitability, so the restructuring of the balance sheet is key. And also on top of that is we are looking at adding a petrochemical plant to the expansion we are going to do, and we are going to also increase our storage as well. When all of this is done, we'll be able to meet the domestic demand and will be a major anchor for the Sahelian market. As you are aware, countries like Burkina Faso and Mali, Niger and Chad, they are landlocked countries. They have no access to sea. They pick petroleum products from countries like Ivory Coast, Benin and Togo. But those countries, the routes to their various countries are not safe. The most safe, peaceful and stable route is to Ghana.
That was the managing director of the Tema Oil Refinery, Edmund Combat, there. And that's how we end Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more news, please check our website at 3news.com. I am Enyonam Haliga. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.